Yeah, well, just first do my short introduction. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our weekly hangout about Bitcoin and much more. I'm your host, Paul Buitink, and my co-hosts today are Job Hartog of blocktrail.com and Tim Pastor of Identify. Today's guest is Brock Pierce, managing partner of Blockchain Capital and freshly elected chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation. We have a lot to talk about with him today, such as the current and future state of the foundation, his investments, his chat with the presidential candidate Rand Paul, the party Richard Branson is throwing, Goldman Sachs investing in Circle, and much more. And we only have 30 minutes. In any case, we invite the audience to engage with us and ask questions too using the Q&A tool. Hi, Brock. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you just came back from a conference in New York, right?
Yeah, the Inside Bitcoins conference in New York was going Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The event had over 1,000 attendees, so one of the most highly attended Bitcoin events anywhere in the world. Of familiar faces, catch up with the businesses and where they are, as well as meet a number of new entrants to the space. So always nice to gather at these large events that bring people together from all over the world.
Yeah, cool. Let's
talk about my favorite subject, of course.
Let's talk about that in a bit more detail later on. Let's first address the situation at the foundation. You've recently been elected the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation, while Bruce Fenton is the new executive director. In the roadmap published by Bruce, I read that he wants to remove all founding members to make it more decentralized. So my question is, with founding members being scrapped and with funding close to zero, with all the bad press the foundation has received, and with MIT funding developers now, wouldn't it make more sense to dissolve the foundation and focus your energy on some of the other clubs like Coin Center and the Bitcoin Association?
Well, I'm doing different things. You have to look at the Bitcoin Foundation as being sort of the longest and what looks like a, sort of an industry or trade association more than a foundation. And it's been filling the void and trying to, with the resources it had, address all the things that this industry needs that are not being addressed by the companies in the space. Things like education, advocacy, policy, and the lobbying that goes with it, the funding and the financing of core development to the extent that there's resources to do so, holding conferences that brought people together. And historically, the foundation was filling most of those roles because there were no other organizations that had stepped up to do so. As the industry's matured, you're starting to see organizations specialize in focusing on each of those call it endeavors. In the case of Coin Center and Perry Ann's Digital Chamber of Commerce, both of those are focused on Capitol Hill in DC, run by great teams, and lobbying. Lobbying is and policy is one of those areas that you can never make everyone in the industry happy, because not everyone's going to agree on the positions that are going to be taken. And as a result of that, organizations are probably best doing just that. I don't think policy organizations are well positioned to do more than policy as a result of always going to be alienating some segment of the community. But I think those are great organizations, and I think they're doing great things, and I'm happy to see both of them doing the things that they're doing and educating those on Capitol Hill. In terms of core development, the foundation board and team has spent the last 3 or 4 months evaluating how, as the foundation is a nonprofit, our goal is not to own things. Our goal is to support aspects of the industry that we've determined to be important and where we have resources to do so. And funding core development is expensive. And we've talked to we talked to pretty much every major potential financier in the industry, and the feedback that we were given was that the foundation's organizational structure and governance is such that no one wanted to give us the millions of dollars that core development needs. And we were only able to get access to the small funds, and so we made a conscious decision, and the feedback we were given as well is that larger checks would be written if this existed within an academic environment. And so as a board, we made a decision to spin this out and let it find a home within an academic organization, and I don't think we could have found a better one, or the team couldn't have found a better home than being where it is at MIT. And I think as a result of that, there's going to be more funding available to for core development. And I think that's a great thing for the industry. But it's still not enough. A lot more support in that area, and more people doing it.
Right. I'm not sure if the others also noticed, but it seems like the connection, your connection isn't that great, Brock. Maybe you can close a few other browsers or programs, or.
I'm going to close Skype to start. That hopefully helps. Did you follow most of what I just said?
Yeah, I did. Well, thanks for clarifying that. Just one more thing about regarding to the.
Sorry, it were the last two sentences who fell away, Brock. So if you can repeat those, then I think.
Yeah, I was just touching on the DevCore conferences that the foundation has put together, and I think those are great events that are specifically focused on dev, and as a result of that, it will hopefully make developers in the industry better developers, but hopefully it brings more core developers into the ecosystem, because I think that we're still severely lacking in that department. There are not enough people focusing today on supporting the underlying open source project and the protocol itself. And anything we can do as an industry to advocate and educate people that will encourage more developers to focus on contributing to the underlying open source protocol, I think is a great thing. And I think the foundation's efforts around DevCore hopefully will continue to do that. We haven't said we're out of development. We've just found homes for those that were working on the Bitcoin Foundation's salary, and hopefully MIT can expand that program. Hopefully other academic institutions can do the same. Hopefully more companies like BitPay that have been paying Jeff Garzak, and Blockstream that is paying a number of core developers. Hopefully more organizations are doing this. We're not relying upon a single entity and a few people being paid. And anything more we can do would be great. I had a great conversation with some people at the conference in New York, and one of the ideas that someone had raised, which I think is great, is the idea of creating a mining pool, but where the fees are going to core developers. I think you'd probably see a lot of people do that, call it something like DevPool. And I would love to see someone set something up like that, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and anyone that's doing anything to encourage and bring more core development to Bitcoin, I think is a very good thing.
Yeah, Tim, maybe you can explain a little bit of what you've been doing recently. You've also tried to help fund core developers, and maybe Brock is aware of the initiative, but Tim, can you explain what you've done and possibly how Brock can help?
Yeah, sure. A little while ago I posted something on Reddit, and it was called Funding on Devs. The idea was just to see if we could find any consensus on funding the core development of Bitcoin. And so it wasn't focused on the core developers who were paid by the Bitcoin Foundation itself, but practically everybody who was working on the project on the GitHub page. So a lot of discussion came out of that, because the way money is being distributed in that way, it's not truly fair. It's probably not the best solution. It's totally not perfect. But it was, for me, it was sort of an experiment to see if people wanted to fund the development of Bitcoin itself. And we raised about 3 or 4 Bitcoins, I believe. So for an experiment, personally, I think it was pretty successful. And it was actually meant as a way for people to start thinking about it. So how can we do this? How can we do it better? And that's why I said from the start, the system isn't perfect, but it's a way. I just want to make people start thinking about it. And the discussion was started with that, so that was a good start, I think.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic, and I would encourage everyone to do all that they can if they're willing to contribute the time and energy to to push forward with projects such as that. Bruce Fenton, who I'm incredibly glad the foundation was able to attract to come in as the lead and to run the organization as executive director, is still finalizing his revised 2015 operating plan. But I would be supportive individually of the foundation continuing to try and find projects that need funding that are not being funded, to help organize those things into lighthouse campaigns, to hopefully finance projects on a special project by project basis. Anything we can do as an industry to to support core development, I think benefits all of us greatly.
Right. So you've been extremely active, Brock, in the space ever since you've entered, and it's almost impossible to keep track of all your investments and ventures. But could you maybe pick two of your most interesting projects you're working on right now, and what you have in store for those projects?
Well, I mean, my day job, the main thing that I'm doing today is I run I'm one of the managing partners that runs a fund called Blockchain Capital, and what we do is invest in Bitcoin and blocks exclusively. We have 34 investments in the space between our first and second fund. And if you go to our website, which is blockchain.capital, we also used to be called Cryptocurrency Partners. You can see most of our portfolio there, and again, to provide capital to those businesses that we're able to again support building out the infrastructure on top of the protocol, the bridges, roads, and tunnels that makes all of this possible. And we're doing what we can to fund as many of those businesses as possible. And we clearly are very active. Some of the exciting things that have happened within the portfolio recently. Well, I guess we'll talk about Circle in a moment, but Zappo's partnership with Latin American social network, I think, is quite exciting. It just with their could be very interesting in terms of creating greater accessibility to the to U.S. citizens, giving them access to Bitcoin products, and by being a bank versus a traditional money services business, I think there's some pretty interesting advantages there that will open up the markets for everyone else. But pretty much most of the businesses in the portfolio are doing great things. We're lucky to have backed phenomenal entrepreneurs that are working hard to make great products and services that will allow this the industry to flourish.
You're also investor in ChangeTip, right?
I am, and one of the it's one of my favorite companies in the space, and I think it's most likely to drive mass adoption in the U.S.
This is one of the first times I really noticed, like, of course, I travel a lot, so I've been using Bitcoin for years, and I like the fact you can pay internationally, but whenever I first got my first donations through ChangeTip, we had a video with Andreas Antonopoulos in January, and we got like $14 donated in like 7 or 8 transactions. It's still, of course, a very small amount, but it's so funny to see those donations coming in. That's something that you would not be able to achieve with the dollar or the euro. So then it was like a moment where I thought, okay, this is such a nice use case that we need to expand upon.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite companies in the space, and I think it's the one that's most likely to drive mass adoption here in the U.S., and that's because most U.S. citizens don't need Bitcoin. It's going to improve their lives, but only a little bit. And a little bit is not enough to get people to, create massive lines to get in on this. It's going to take time. But I think what ChangeTip is doing is a thing that I can see, every American benefiting, from a product or service such as that, because it's useful. Microtransactions are a thing that the web has needed for decades, and Bitcoin, and I think ChangeTip is doing the best job of that, is making that possible. And the human behavior has existed for, in the analog world for thousands of years. You would, put money into a hat when you saw street performers singing, dancing, doing tricks, whatever it might be, or tip jars on counters. The human behavior has existed for a very long time.
So
and
maybe we should dance a bit more even.
Yeah, instead of just your Facebook like button or that Twitter star button or whatever it might be, you now have the ability to say thank you to those people that have shared good and interesting content with you with some monetary value, even though it might only be a penny worth of Bitcoin. I think that's pretty exciting.
And what's your whole take on the Bitcoin maximalism discussion?
What was that question?
What's your take on this whole discussion about on the one hand we have Bitcoin maximalists, or people that think the Bitcoin blockchain is the blockchain to rule them all. On the other hand, we have all the other initiatives, Ethereum, you name it. Are you a Bitcoin maximalist, or are you more of a pragmatist, or more somewhere in the middle?
Well, I try to. I'm obviously incredibly bullish about Bitcoin and every aspect of it, including Bitcoin's blockchain and some of the other things that can be done with it. But I also try to maintain my objectivity. I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid to the point that I lose, an ability to objectively look at situations, and that's often difficult, especially when, like most of us, we've committed a lot of our lives. I mean, in my case, almost all of my time is spent, supporting this ecosystem, whether it be investing in companies, whether it be, helping entrepreneurs, think through their businesses, whether it be contributing my time to organizations like the Bitcoin Foundation and others, whether it be out there just generally evangelizing on behalf of the industry and educating people that are not familiar with Bitcoin yet. I mean, most of my time is committed to it, so it's very easy to, fall victim to drinking the Kool-Aid, to the point that you've lost sight of, reality.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that Bitcoin is likely the winner. And I've said many times, I'm not sure if Bitcoin is the Friendster, the MySpace, or the Facebook, trying to use a general, sort of internet social networking analogy that will resonate with most people, at least people in the tech industry. But those organizations also failed, as a result of human failures. In the case of Friendster, the VCs had never seen a company scaling like that first social network did. It was an unprecedented event. And it was going to require an incredible and exorbitant amount of investment for that business to be able to scale in line with the consumer interest. And the VCs at the time, not ever having seen one of these, didn't fund it in the way that it should have, and they had a unicorn on their hands. Now, when you get a business that's scaling toward 1 billion users, you pour all the money on it you have to make sure it stays operational. But Friendster failed largely as a result of the issue that I just raised. In the case of MySpace, it got sold to News Corp. Once it had been sold, the founders had exited. The ambition and the motivation and the hunger of the team to continue to, be aggressive and to compete against Facebook just isn't what it is. And it's inside of a big bureaucracy. And sometimes, doing the things that you want to do as an entrepreneur, where you didn't need a bunch of approvals and 3 months of discussion to make a change. Once it was in that larger organization, it ended up failing due to a number of things that, Bitcoin doesn't suffer from. As an open source project, that's running in a distributed, decentralized environment, it's not subject to those same risks, though it clearly is subject to a number of risks. So if Bitcoin were to be, supplanted by something else, I think it would be as a result of something that is substantially better. I mean, if you look at the first wave of altcoins, they're forks of Bitcoin with very, I think, little in the way of differentiation. Certainly not something that's compelling enough to make someone want to move away from the thing that everyone's heard of, that has all of this mining infrastructure and the security that comes with it, and all the developers that are working on it, all of the capital that's been coming into the industry from venture, supporting businesses, building around it. It would have to be something substantially better.
You're an advisor to Newcoin, right? I don't know how to pronounce it, Newcoin or Newcoin, but you're an advisor to that new venture, which claims to be, like most altcoins, of course, but claims to be much better than Bitcoin, and claims not to suffer from some of the things Bitcoin's suffering from. So how do you manage those kinds of conflicting interests in a way?
Well, I mean, I don't see myself as conflicted. I philosophically, what we're doing here in terms of democratizing the global financial system and allowing every person on the planet to have equal access and improving the lives of billions of people, that's the fundamental philosophy of what it is that I'm doing. And anything that's supporting that sort of initiative in a way where we can also profit. I'm there, and again, is to maintain my objectivity. I don't want to just say, oh, proof of work is the only way to go. I want to understand proof of stake. I want to understand other consensus-based algorithms and say, is there something there? Right now, Bitcoin's proof of work system is the one that I believe is the only thing that's proven, and it's been around for years, and it's secure. It's got its issue of mining sort of concentration and centralization occurring as a result of efficiencies of scale. But my interest in Newcoin is I've known Dan Kaufman, the founder, for 10 plus years. I know a lot of people in this industry long before there was Bitcoin, and I brought a lot of them into the industry. just as a result of having been an entrepreneur in the tech space for many years prior to this. And I'm always interested.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm curious to see how proof of stake develops over the coming years.
Yeah.
As of right now, it's still unproven, but interesting. And I can say that Dan Kaufman and the team at Newcoin are some of the best I've seen in the space.
Yeah. Did you also get Rand Paul into Bitcoin? Because you met with Rand last weekend. You talked like an hour with him, and he's, for people that don't know, he's the first presidential candidate that accepts Bitcoin. So what did you guys talk about, and did you get him into Bitcoin?
No, I can't take any credit for having got Rand Paul into Bitcoin. I'm not sure who specifically did it, though. It's one of a couple, so I want to be careful, and I'm happy to give those people that did the credit when that's clear. But no, I think it's exciting. A lot of us in the Bitcoin community, certainly those that have sort of a libertarian view of the world, are probably fans of Ron Paul, his father, to some degree. And I was asking a bunch of people the questions is, did Ron name his son after his favorite author? But I was told by someone that no, that was not the case, and it's not. It's Randall Paul, and he shortened it to Rand, so maybe he was not named after. No, I face, and it was an honor to get an opportunity to meet him in person, spend some time with him along with a number of other people from the Bitcoin community, and to be able to ask him some questions. His answer to, okay, why are you interested in Bitcoin? What are you, what made you choose to accept it? His answer was great. He was asked, and he said, money. We're politicians. We all need more money. Those weren't his exact words, but that was more or less the sentiment. We all were very amused and clapped and applauded that. And then he gave a legitimate answer, and that was that the part that resonated with me most is that he believes that the government shouldn't have a monopoly on currency, and that competitive currencies should be allowed to exist. There's a lot about Rand Paul that I like, and I look forward to learning more about him and seeing how he performs in the upcoming Republican primaries. But I think as an industry, it's great to see that one of the candidates has acknowledged that we exist and is doing what they can to cater to us as a constituency. It means we're starting to matter.
Yeah, very exciting. Some other exciting news this week was, of course, Richard Branson's announcement of throwing a private party on this island, and you were one of the people going to speak there, or going to be part of that event. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Well, it's not Richard Branson's event per se. Richard is attending, but it was put together by a group of people within the Bitcoin ecosystem. And specifically, Bill Tai, who sits on the board of Bitfury, who was a very famous VC back in the 90s, active investor in semiconductors, the sort of stuff that's being used for Bitcoin mining. He ran, I think, Charles River Ventures, one of preeminent venture firms, and Bitfury, and on the board of Bitfury, and he hosts a kiteboarding event around the world called Mai Tai with Susie Mai. And so Richard Branson is a big kiteboarder. They hold events there frequently, and I know that some of the people from the Bitcoin community have gone down to the island a couple of times over the last year to do the kiteboarding on Bitcoin. Clearly, he's been blogging about it. He's a fan. He's an investor in BitPay and perhaps some others. And so, a group of people within the industry put together this event that was solely focused on Bitcoin. But I think, as Richard reported today, specifically because of there were not enough women in attendance at the event, that a few people have been disgruntled. I know, at least in my case, I invited and suggested a number of the female entrepreneurs in the space to participate. I'm not sure why they didn't attend, whether they had conflicts or cost or who knows what, but I'm going to be submitting another longer list of names who I think would be good potential attendees.
And are you going to convince him to use Bitcoin in his Virgin Bank? Because he has a banking empire in the UK, I think, Virgin Bank, or maybe also in other countries. Could be a good opportunity to persuade him to fully adopt Bitcoin there as well?
I never waste an opportunity to pitch uses of Bitcoin to everyone I meet, and certainly if given an opportunity to spend some time with someone as important and influential as Richard Branson, I will clearly do my best to convince him to do more than he's currently doing.
Well, keep us posted. Okay, well, another interesting news, of course, was Goldman Sachs investing in Circle. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Again, I think that's a great event for Paul, and I often say, and try to roll the industry, and we're still very fragile. I like Julia's recent YouTube video where she said that Bitcoin is not a honey badger. We're still small and we're still fragile. And anything that's good for anyone in this industry is good for everyone. Anything that's bad for anyone in this industry is bad for everyone. Rising tides raise all ships. And I think as an industry we need to do more to support each other and to acknowledge and give credit to those that are making great things happen, because we all benefit from it. And owning Bitcoin itself is like owning shares in everything. So we all benefit in some way as long as you're a participant, no matter who's doing what, as long as they're getting big things done. So I think Goldman Sachs' investment into Circle, again, is a major validation of the industry and the things that we're doing. And the financial world and the major banks have acknowledged that we exist. They acknowledge that the technology that we're working with is disruptive and presents interesting opportunities and threats, and they're stepping up. And I'd say over the course of the last year, that's been a huge change. I mean, you have Coinbase's deal where you had the USAA, a bank in the U.S. that invested in the company. You have BBVA, a major bank in Spain that invested. You have the New York Stock Exchange, that invested. You've seen UBS announce that they are, starting to experiment in the space. You've seen Barclays Bank do the same. You've seen now Goldman Sachs make a direct investment. These sorts of things, positive events that we so often receive. A lot of people that are not knowledgeable about the space and haven't committed the time that all of us have, still most of them have a pretty negative impression of Bitcoin. If you walk down the street and you say, "Hey, have you heard of Bitcoin?" You're still going to get a lot of answers of, "Oh, that stuff for drugs," or "Oh, wait, isn't the CEO in jail?" or "Oh, wait, didn't it go bankrupt?" We've had a lot of very negative, sensational headlines, and when the broader public that are not yet in the space see, "Oh, Goldman Sachs invested in Bitcoin," it does a lot for us, I think, as an industry to correct some of those awful misperceptions that we have as an industry. So, I'd like to congratulate Jeremy and Lear and the entire team at Circle at pulling off, what many would have argued a year ago was impossible.
Yeah, and what do you say to people, especially maybe like the libertarians that you mentioned earlier, or some of the people involved in the space, also for philosophical reasons? What do you say to those people when they say, "Look, I'm not particularly excited about a bank like Goldman Sachs, being bailed out and having been part of the crisis in a way, participating in the Bitcoin space"? What do you say to those people?
Well, I mean, some people obviously could take a very negative view of that because they just don't like banking institutions, but it is a free world, and people and organizations are going to do what they want. So I'd rather have them participating with us and validating us, and it causes the rest of the world to acknowledge us and take us seriously. And when all is said and done over the course of the next couple of decades, the chips will fall where they fall, and whatever disruption is here and is going to happen as a result of the things we're doing, participating or not, it's a net positive for us as an industry, but not everyone's going to agree. And that's that's a beautiful thing. We don't all have to agree, and we're all going to do what we can to move the industry forward in some shape or fashion. And I'm glad that we are such a diverse and opinionated group. It's what makes us special. It's what makes us interesting, and it's what's going to cause us, I think, to ultimately change the world.
How do you look at the regulation part that's going on in different states in America right now? I saw that New York is finalizing the last draft, or at least a statement about it by Ben Lawsky. How do you look at that? Is it worrisome? Are you involved in any way in educating the parties in there? What's your opinion?
I mean, my personal view is that I'd like to see regulators take as much time possible to understand what it is. Again, this is an industry that's in its infancy. It has the ability to change the world for the better, and regulation typically only makes it harder, for us as a fledgling industry to operate and do some of the basic things that we need if we want to innovate. Putting in place regulations like this is going to cause a lot less companies to get started that could or would or should, and only the really well capitalized companies are going to be able to operate, and I don't think that's a good thing for we the people. But regulators are going to do what they're going to do, and it's, I think, up to all of us to do our best to try and educate them to the best of our ability so that they make good, sensible decisions to the extent they do. But from my perspective, I'd like a lot more time prior to these sort of bespoke regulations being put in place. But they're like all things. There's nothing that's completely good or completely bad. There's certain positive aspects to events that occur and negative. And the reality is it's impossible to say whether something is good or bad at the time that it's happening until you have the benefit of hindsight. So a few years from now, we'll be able to really tell what was the impact of it. It could be positive, it could be negative. From a positive perspective, it says that again, we're being taken seriously, and that we're real, and that's, I guess, a positive thing in some ways. And from a negative perspective, it's going to make it harder to innovate. And the freedoms that we all feel strongly about, it's going to be bad for New York. It's unfortunate for the people there that they're not going to be able to have access to the same quality of Bitcoin services that some of us have elsewhere in the world. But I don't know if you saw what Fred Wilson posted, but he made an interesting comment on the regulation specifically, saying that, hey, Silicon Valley may be the new Wall Street, because of overly burdensome regulation. And that might not even be Silicon Valley. Maybe that's London. Maybe that's Singapore. Maybe it's somewhere else. And I think that regulators should be mindful of the fact that this is a hugely disruptive technology. I think that we're one of only 3 disruptive technologies of the type of scale that we're looking at here. There's the invention of the PC, the internet, and us. I mean, we're talking about something so disruptive, every business and industry and life on the planet is going to be changed as a result of this technology at some point in time. And as a regulator, the future of your nation and state could largely be impacted by the decisions you make. Imagine what the world would look like if all the internet entrepreneurial activity, had been in Europe, Russia, China, Latin America. Think about if the PC was invented somewhere else. How would the world look today? And when you're looking at a technology that has the ability to impact the world as much as this does, and in a positive way, you should be doing what you can to embrace, that innovation and try to have it happening on your home soil, because you stand to benefit a great deal from it.
So, amen to that.
So I agree. So what do you see as the biggest?
I couldn't understand that question.
I should say.
Sorry, Tim, I couldn't understand that question. If you could ask again, that'd be great, please.
I'll repeat, no problem. What do you see as the biggest challenge for Bitcoin, or maybe even all cryptocurrencies, in order to reach mass adoption, apart from the regulatory issues that we are seeing at the moment, and maybe also the negative image that it has for some people?
Yeah, I don't think the regulatory issues are the ones that are going to prevent us from succeeding or failing. It slows things down and makes things more difficult, but it's not going to prevent, the outcome is going to happen either way. Obviously the negative headlines and the negative perception that we have is a big. I think the biggest issue is ultimately the last option. Probably 100 million or a billion. Facebook went from 0 to 1 billion users in 5 years. WhatsApp went from 0 to 1 billion users in 2 or 3 years. We have a long, long, long ways to go. And I think a big part of that is in that basic infrastructure phase, the bridges, the roads, the tunnels. It's that last mile. We talk about things like remittance and the $550 billion industry of people sending money from the developed world to the developing world, whether it be the Philippines, India, Mexico, etc. And we talk about this great use case, and we talk about how people are going to be able to get money home faster and cheaper. But the reality is it's very hard for people to use that money to pay their bill, groceries, because that last mile doesn't yet fully exist in a lot of these places. But I feel comfortable that the entrepreneurs and the people around the world that are advocating and evangelizing this, we're solving those problems slowly. I mean, we've had, call it $1 billion of capital into this.
Brock, you're still there? Connection isn't super today, unfortunately. Guys, you can still hear me?
Yeah.
Brock?
Everyone now?
Yeah,
you're back.
now. Yeah, you're back. You were black for
Sorry.
well, but you're back. But yeah,
I'll have to look into the internet connection here in my office.
yeah. But anyway, we were over half an hour already. Thanks for everything, Brock. Is there something you want to share? There's one thing I want to say anyway, because I just talked to Twan Frins, the guy who connected us. He wanted me to mention a congress you guys are organizing in San Francisco, Coin Congress, the 13th and the 14th of August, right?
Yeah. San Francisco is obviously a great place to go in general. It's still probably it's the hub of innovation, certainly in the technologies globally, and so it's great people in and outside of the space, and I look forward to seeing everyone there.
Cool. Well, thanks, Brock. Anything you want to add?
No, just that I'm grateful
No, not for
for the
now.
opportunity to come here and join you today. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure was ours, and good luck with all your ventures, and maybe let's do it again in the future one day.
All right, everyone.
Okay, bye, Brock.